Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this final plenary session of WISE. We've reached the very final stage of our gathering here. I hope you found it valuable and empowering. The Majlis has been a hive of activity, so many interesting projects, so many people trying to make a difference. So I hope that you have soaked up as much of it as you can. I'd like to first thank the sponsors who have made this possible. Banco Santander and ExxonMobil. It's your generosity that's helped bring us together. And I'd also like to thank the WISE knowledge partners, the organizations and the specialists whose research and expertise play such an important role in this mission. And also the WISE media partners who do such a valuable job of spreading the word, particularly about education in developing societies. So thank you all very much indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, it's now my pleasure to introduce this year's WISE Prize for Education laureate. She is someone who has dedicated the last 20 years of her life to the cause of education in Afghanistan. In 1995, she founded the Afghan Institute for Learning. In the beginning, while the Taliban was in power, it ran underground schools that educated thousands of girls. But to date, its work on health and education has reached 12 million people. So please welcome the WISE Prize for Education laureate, Dr. Sakena Yacoobi.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. In the name of God, the most merciful and the most beneficent. Your Highness, Sheikh Musa Nasser, the Chair Foundation, and dear delegate, Assalamu alaikum. Today I would like to talk to you about a story of my life and a story of the people who I work with. Education changed my life. Education transformed me. So I'm going to start from the beginning. When I was a little girl, I remember my father holding my hand, walking through the street, dirty street, in the old bazaar of Herat. He took me to a house of mullah. And I asked him where we are going. And he told me, we are going to go to the mosque. And we are going to learn how to read. So, as a child, of course, I just was giggling and laughing and going with my father to the house of mullah. When I got there, I remember he told mullah, whatever you know, you teach my daughter, because she is so special for me. Of course, every daughter is special for their father. And since that day, my father, God bless him, continuously he supported me. He encouraged me. And he told me you must get your education. Why I'm talking about my father? My father was not educated. My father was 5 years old when he lost his father. But you know, my father started from very childhood. As a child, he worked as a labor child. And by age of 25, my father was a very successful businessman. And always he said to himself that when I have children, doesn't make my children who they are, if it's a girl or is a boy, must get education. And that was my father. So, since I was the firstborn, I was a girl, but he treated me equal as a boy. Whatever I requested, he gave it to me. So I guess I can tell you that I was the lucky one. I was born in a family that they appreciate education. Of course, my other cousins, the same age as me, they went to school. By the age of 12, 15, they got married. They stopped the school. I was the only girl who could go from that family to school and complete my education. And that's a blessing. That is a blessing. Maybe for you, it's not that much. At that time in Afghanistan, for a father who is not educated to encourage her child to go to school, his child, it was very special things. Since I was a child, I really wanted to be a doctor. You might ask why. But you know, every day that I was living in Afghanistan, going to school, going outside, I hear a cry of a child who was crying because he or she lost his mother because her or his mother was delivering a baby. And every day, I could see the mother crying because she lost her baby, very young. My own mother had 16 pregnancies. From 16 pregnancies, only we lost 5 of us. There wasn't a day that I was not scared that any moment I will lose my mother. That was, as a child, for me, it was devastating my life. I was scared. That was the reason I said, I'm going to be a doctor. I am going to help the women to have a service, the little children, that they don't die, because I miss my brother and sister. That was my childhood. Since that time, I was studying very hard. I completed my high school. I was the first one in my class, but I wanted to go to university. And I got accepted in medical school and engineering school. And you know what? I could not go to the university because the Russians were invading Afghanistan. We had a lot of trouble. So my father said, you will go to Kabul, but I have to go with you. You cannot go by yourself. The situation is not good. So I said, fine. Then my father arranged it that I could go to America. So I went to America. I went to America. I started my education. I was in the field of science. I was studying. Then, you know what happened to my life? It was shattered because Russia invaded Afghanistan. I became a refugee in the US. There was a day that I did not know what's happening to my family. But I knew one thing, that I have to be strong and study very, very hard. In the meantime, I find out that my family was driven out of their house. We had a good life. We had a good home. We had a very beautiful place. Everything was taken away from my parents. They were in the refugee camp in Iran. So that wasn't easy life for me. I struggled, but I studied very hard. And constantly I was thinking about Afghanistan, about the women of Afghanistan, about the children of Afghanistan, what's happening to them. But in the meantime, I completed my education. And the first thing I wanted to do, I was a professor at the University of Detroit, Michigan. I had a good job. Every time I turn around and I look, everybody was educated. Yes, I was a successful professor. Yes, I made a good money. Yes, my life was very comfortable. But what about my people? how they are doing, what they are doing. That was a trouble in my heart. So I brought my family to the US. I brought them because I know I want to go back. And I know that if my family are there, they will be in trouble. So I brought my family all by myself to the US. I sponsored them. In a matter of 1 year, I decided I'm going back to Afghanistan. Of course, my father said, you cannot go, there is a war. I said, I go to the refugee camp. My mother was in tears, but my father said, yes, let her go. She wants to go, let her go. You could imagine what kind of a father I had. And that was the man of Afghanistan. Today, everybody says that men in Afghanistan are prejudiced or they are doing this and that. Yes, they are some of them, but all of them are not like that. He was very open-minded, very intelligent, and he let me do what I wanted to do. So he sent me back. I went to the refugee camp. And let me tell you, when I went to the refugee camp, it wasn't a good scene. There were children crying. There were women weeping. They lost everything they had. I felt what they felt because I was a refugee once. They were devastated. They didn't have money. They didn't have home. They didn't have a school. They didn't have food. And they were sitting there. They were desperate. What I was going to do for them? I went there to help. How I could help? What I could do with those people? 7.5 million people in the refugee camp. That was a huge group of people. And at that moment, I remember that education changed my life. Education transformed me. Education gave me my dignity. Education gave me a status. Education gave me stability, gave me financial stability. That was education that is provided for me. How about my sister and brother? Am I different from them? No. They are the same as me. God created all of us equal. We have the same right in this world. So I said, I am going to go after education. The key solution for this problem is education. Education can build resilience. Education can give dignity. Education can give freedom. Education can alleviate poverty. Education can alleviate conflict, and we were living in a conflict zone. So that was it. But what kind of education? Is any kind of education can help? Just education, how to read and write? No. We sat and we thought about it. I find out myself that the only way that these people will be different if they learn critical thinking. Critical thinking makes you to be aware of your right, aware of your surrounding, aware of your freedom, aware of your skill. You can learn anything you want if you make your mind. That was I went after, and that was teacher training. We developed a curriculum that the teacher can use methodology that is a participatory methodology. It's a student-centered technique. The children can be the core of the program, and the teacher work around it. And that methodology becomes so successful that when I start implementing in Peshawar, Pakistan, in a matter of 4 months and a half, a child could learn how to read and write. While in Afghanistan, in 4 years, a child could not read and write. That was revolutionized the system of education. All of a sudden, everyone from the community come and they wanted their children to go to school. And that was the time that from 300 students, we went in 1 year to 15,000 students in the refugee camp. 15,000. 15,000. And let me tell you, every single mother, every father, every child wants to come to learn because children were happy, children were enjoying learning, the learning was easier to learn, the child could stay in the classroom instead of running away. Before, these children were traumatized. You could not hold them in the class. All of a sudden, they have fun, they have activity, they work with the teacher works with them, and the teacher has a special relationship with them, friendly relationship. There is no stick to beat them, there is no frowning, and the teacher is happy, they are happy, even they are under the tent, even they are under the tree, even they don't have a blackboard, even they don't have a notebook. But you know what? They had love. That was the core of the program, to teach how to love these children, how to reach them with a smile, not to just beat them. And that way, this news is spread all over. And that was the time that the community was every one of them. They love us, we love them, we built a relationship together. We keep creating school after school. The community helped me. The community provide the teacher. We provide the salary. The community give the space. We provide the material. We work together. Cooperation really work. And that was the way that we work. And the news went into Afghanistan. And that was the time that they wanted a school into Afghanistan. And that was the time of Taliban. And you know, at that time, the school was banned for girls. Nobody could go to school. And what happened? We said again, use the same procedure. Talk to the community, ask them questions, listen to them, and said, what do you need? And they want a school. And one condition, if you give me space, I will give you the teacher. If you give me protection, I will give you supplies in teacher training. And you have to be part of this. You have to feel this is yours, not mine. And according to that, people were just giving their space. And they promising they will protect. And they did. We went to 5 provinces of Afghanistan, 80 schools, and you know, I just want to give you good news. I made you a little sad, but you know those students today, they are doctor, they are engineer, they are lawyer, and they work. They are the ones that today rebuilding Afghanistan. Yes, we have trouble still. I will get to that. But it's beautiful. When I see the children going out of school, unbelievable today. Today we have open school everywhere. We have clinic. We have provided so many educational material because the community is trying to help us and we build with them. I want to just tell you a story, share with you a story. One day I was in America. It was a conference at the university. And I was giving a speech like today. All of a sudden in front row, I was watching. There was 3 beautiful young girls weeping, like I almost break my presentation. And they were weeping in front row. And finally, I stopped. When I finished, I went to them. And I said, what's wrong? And they surrounded me, and they hugged me, and they cried. They said, you know, we are here today because of you. And we didn't know who you are. And they were, one went to a medical school, 2 was in engineering school, and they were in full scholarship. And that's the way the time of Taliban, those students went, and they learned. And you know that those students will go back to Afghanistan and will help the people of Afghanistan. That's the way you want to do. That's the way you should do. Thank you. So we built a school, we built the system. So where we are today, what we are doing today. Today, EIL has reached 12 million people provided service. 6 million students benefited from our teacher training. 4 million people reach our health service. And how we did it and why we did it. The way we did it, because we listened to the people. We built a relationship with the people. And they trusted us, and we trusted them. And according to today's Sustainable Development Goal, that they are requesting what you should do, how do you reach. Exactly, they are trying to use our system. Why? Because it's successful. Because you build community, because the community is working with you. If you do not listen to them and you do not work with them, you will not reach your goal. And that's happened. I am so thankful to the people who have been working with me, to my staff, to Afghan Institute of Learning. They are fantastic. They are smart. They are intelligent. Above all, the youth group that we are working today. Yes, we provide a school, we provide service and health, but thousands and thousands of students come to our compound. Young students from university, from high school. They come and they request a space. Why they come and request a space? Because they trust us. Why they want the space? They want to negotiate, they want to communicate, they want to debate. They want just a space to be there. And we provide the refreshment. We provide for them a facilitator, and they discuss democracy, they discuss politics, they discuss peace, they discuss health, they discuss all kinds of topics, and they are getting idea and critical thinking. And that's the way we wanted the system. That's the way that you transform people, to give them a free space that they can freely, they talk with each other and share idea, share innovation, share creativity, and that's what we did. We provide services. Today, we have Radio Mirage. Recently, we just launched Radio Mirage. Radio Mirage helped us so much, and I wish that 10 years ago I could have that, but for some reason we couldn't. Today we have. Radio Mirage is broadcasting all the raw material that we have through the radio, and we are reaching 2 million people. The reason is that the area that we could not go, those people can tune in to the radio and listen to it. And that is really make our life easier. Today, Afghanistan has trouble, still. Still, we are living in a conflict zone. Still, we have a lot of problems. Still, school is being closed. Still, students being thrown acid in their face. Still, children are being kidnapped. But you know what? In the other way, if you look, also the civil society is rising up, especially women. Today, the women of Afghanistan are not the same women that they have been 10 years ago. They are getting education, they are going to school, they are going to university, they are doing business, they are traveling abroad, and they have their own business, and that is education. Education is not an easy solution. It's a long-term process. But you know, once you have a patience and tolerance for it, you continuously going and you see the outcome. And today, sometimes people ask me, aren't you tired? It's 23 years you are working. Aren't you exhausted? And you know what? My answer is, when I see that child is smiling in the classroom, when I see those women sitting around the table and discussing with each other, bringing their issue, finding a solution with each other, that makes me happy. So all the tiredness will go away. And that's what we are doing. That's what EIL is doing. And I am so proud of the children of Afghanistan. Very simple way they start learning. We didn't have facility. We didn't have books. We didn't have even building. But today, we have 4 private schools. Completely all is ready to go with computer, with laboratory, with library, with chair and table, with beautiful building. All is there. The children are learning. because they work with us. The community work with us. Today, the children coming from far distance, they want to go to Yacoobi school. Why? Because they see that the system of education is different. They see that creativity taking place. Their children are smarter, they are learning, they are asking questions, and they want their children to be there. All the children goes there? No. Do we have a problem in our educational system still? Yes. But there are a system that says profit for non-profit. It means that in one classroom, a child come paying a fee, but several other child sit with the full scholarship. And that is the way we try to collaborate, help each other. And that is the sustainable goal says to us that we should start practicing that. And I want to say to Her Highness Sheikh Musa bint Nasir, I really want to thank you, especially because you are the one who give recognition to the creativity and innovation on education. That you have taken steps that every leader in every nation who are superpower, they should do the same thing. They should follow your footsteps. They should not pay money for weapon. They should not pay money for gun and tank. They should pay money for books, they should pay money for books, for a school, for pen. And then they could see a world of peaceful world. They should go the root of the problem. The root of the problem that there is poverty is lack of education. Lack of education. If we have educational system setting up good, every nation, every child goes to school, today there wouldn't be a war. Will not be a war in this world. Every child has a right to education. Every individual has a right to education. Islam says education is not only the right of every individual, is the duty and responsibility of every individual. Thank you. Thank you, Your Highness. I really believe with all my heart that your method, your system that you are doing in WISE is going to help the world. Giving recognition to education, you will bring the peace through that methodology. And we need peace. People are in trouble. There is war, there is conflict, there is poverty, there is health issue. The world is in trouble. We need education, and thank you very, very much for all your support.
And Dr. Yacoobi, we need people like you, the WISE Prize for Education laureate, Dr. Sakena Yacoobi. Dr. Yacoobi, we can all only hope and pray that your work continues to flourish, as does your country. So we wish you all the very best, as I think you can feel in this room today. Many congratulations on winning the WISE Prize for Education for this year. And as many of you will know, that is a very special part of what WISE does, but it also recognizes many projects that are going on around the world through the WISE Awards. You may have seen this year's winners around the convention center. They were from Egypt, Argentina, Kenya, Uganda, Ghana, and one from here in Qatar. So, as we honor this year's Prize laureate, it's worth saying that if you know of a project that deserves recognition anywhere in the world, or indeed if you are running one, you can either nominate one or apply yourselves via the WISE website, because the process is open for next year's winners. So we look forward to hearing about more wonderful work going on in different parts of the world. Well, Your Highness, ladies and gentlemen, in the final part of this session, I'd like to try and draw together some of the strands that have already been part of this year's WISE, and I think we can do that with the help of our panel, and I'd like to invite them to please join me on stage now. So let me introduce them all to you. Next to me, Letizia Moratti, who served as Italy's Minister of Education between 2001 and 2006. She's also served as Mayor of Milan. She set up a foundation for people suffering from drug addiction, and also an initiative that delivers low-cost MBAs in Africa. Claudia Costin is Senior Director of the Education Global Practice at the World Bank. She was previously Secretary for Education in Rio de Janeiro, where she worked a lot on reform of early childhood education, particularly in the favelas. Aisha Al-Nama is one of the outgoing group of WISE learners. That is a program that gives young people a voice in rethinking education. She has a degree in graphic design and worked in branding at Hamad bin Khalifa University here in Doha, and she's now pursuing another degree in law. And from our hosts, WISE Chief Executive Stavros Yanuka. Welcome to you all. And I have to say, it is not easy to be the ones who come on stage to follow Dr. Sakena Yacoobi. Aisha Al-Nama, can I ask you first, what will you take away from what Dr. Yacoobi told us?
I think the one, sorry, is this working? So the one really inspiring thing about you, Dr. Sakena, is you've mentioned that the story of impacting millions of people started with you, your determination, and a parent who trusted you, who supported you without his education, but believed in what you wanted to do. And now you've impacted so many people, and I hope that everyone here who's determined to continue their education, to have their support system and believe in that as well.
And Claudia Costin, Afghanistan is in a fragile place, particularly with the handover of power that's going on. And I know you do work there as in other parts of the world. What can be done to ensure that whatever happens security-wise, this work carries on?
Well, first I have to say that I was moved to tears by Dr. Sakena's speech. Really moved to tears. And while I was concentrated in my emotions, I could at the same time see that what she said is so central to education. She mentioned student-centered techniques. So it was not just about emotions. It was, and not only about working in harsh conditions. The secret of what you've done is that you show that if even in those harsh conditions, it's possible to have student-centered techniques and ensure that every child can learn. All teachers in the world, no matter what they are, if they get the good and solid pre-service education, focus on what is really necessary, education can bloom, can prosper. And yes, we are working in Afghanistan, and yes, we want to ensure that what you've done is ensured to all the kids there in the country.
Well, let's turn to your own areas of expertise. And Letizia Moratti, let's start with your time in government in Italy. When you looked at the curriculum and you had the ability to change something, what did you choose to prioritize?
Well, let me first join in recognizing the incredible work that Dr. Yacoobi has done, and I was also moved to tears. So thank you, because you are really a role model to inspire all of us. And I think I tried. It wasn't easy, because the resistance of unions, teachers were very strong. And I think what I succeeded is probably one thing among many, because when I chose to become ministers of education, I did it because I knew that there were too many young girls and boys that were leaving school before finishing the school. So we had a high dropout rate in Italy. And this was, something that I couldn't accept. So what I succeeded was to establish a vocational training system together with the other system, the Lyceum system, that could allow girls and boys to reach the highest level, so to go to university. And by doing that, we were able to give more chance, more opportunity to boys and girls that need a different way.
So the completion of education
exactly.
did improve?
It did.
Well,
we had 180,000 people, young people that were out of school, which went back to school.
Yes. And
so
that is an innovation. That was an innovation, which of course, Stavros, is what WISE is all about. What above all do you want people to take away from this year?
Thank you, Michelle. I think I have three key takeaways that I'd like to share. The first, I think Her Highness set the tone yesterday when she reminded us all that we still have an unfulfilled promise to keep. We're moving on now from the Millennium Development Goals to the Sustainable Development Goals, but that work is not yet done. And so we need to keep that promise. She also reminded us that if we're to capture the benefits and retain the benefits of the good work that's been done, say at the primary school level, we need to start thinking about mechanisms and creating bridges between the different levels of education. So that's my first takeaway. The second one is, I think, and again I need to refer to Dr. Yacoobi, she really embodies the unconquerable human spirit. The Soviets came, she founded her organization. The Soviets left. The Taliban came. Did she retreat? No, she expanded. The Taliban left. The West came. And she's still expanding, she's still there. If she can do it under those conditions, then really the rest of us have no excuse. It's time to get serious.
Well, Claudia Costin, from what you see at the World Bank, how do you decide what is worth investing in? What is going to give you the maximum return on your investment? I'm sorry to put it down in purely financial terms, but that matters as well.
Unfortunately, there is no silver bullet. One thing that is the thing in education, early childhood development matters a lot. It's the biggest, the most effective investment that one can make is starting with early childhood. But if we stop there, then we won't be able to continue. We have to have excellent primary education that ensures that every child reads and writes since first grade, as Dr. Sakena has done, and continuing with secondary, ensuring that all girls finish at least upper secondary, as Malala is preaching to the world, 12 years of basic education for all. And skills for the young people that fell behind. If we don't ensure skills, proper technical and vocational education for young people, we will have violence, we will have riots. And tertiary education complements all this. Sorry, there is no silver bullet.
Yeah, no easy answers, but a very rich debate. Aisha Al-Nama, let's talk about your own. Claudio Costines mentioned young people, and you, interestingly, you acquired one degree, then you decided to do another. I wonder how much you think we need to think more in terms of acquiring skills, that is the essence of what we should be trying to get out of higher education.
So, to continue higher education and to acquire skills, we need to foster an interest. We live in a world, I live in a country that I'm grateful of. It creates an opportunity. Higher education system here is progressive. It's tailoring the programs to the demands of the country and demands of the region. So if we can foster the dialogue beginning with the parents, because they influence their children's decisions, if we can through that dialogue, foster that interest and show that there are opportunities, that what we know of an available opportunity must have progressed, must have changed. And through that, I guess we can really support.
And therefore, do you think that this is true probably anywhere in the world today, that young people have a job sort of enlightening their parents about how the world has changed since their time?
So, surely. Inspiring parents and fostering the dialogue with them, starting with them, and we've talked about that, Ms. Claudia, that through the parents and by creating that dialogue, we can change perspectives and shift that limited way of thinking and what the options are, so that we don't limit as well children and what they can be when they want to grow up.
Letizia Moratti, one of your initiatives is the one that is helping try to foster entrepreneurship in Africa. Why did you decide to do that?
Well, I think that there can't be sustainable development in the world without sustainable development in Africa. And I was discussing with Dr. Zuma, the chairperson of the African Union last week, and she was stressing the fact that still Africa is viewed as a provider of raw materials to the Western country. And I think this is really something we have to avoid. I think we need to look at Africa as a continent who need to develop their own talented people and leave the benefit in Africa. So that's the reason why.
And so your MBA program is operational in how many countries?
It is. It's operational in Africa. We are in 5 countries. We are in Kenya, in Ghana, in Uganda, in Sierra Leone and Ivory Coast. And we work with local university. So we train and we coach impact entrepreneurs, but we do also train university to have capacity building to become trainers. And therefore, again, give more power, empower. I think the word empower, we need to empower women, we need to empower countries, we need to empower people that are caring about other people. This is what we need to do. And it's what we think to do with our E4Impact Foundation. We are going to be in 4 more countries next year, in Senegal, Tanzania, Ethiopia and Nigeria, and 15 countries by 2020.
And the students get their MBA in a year?
Yes, and it's an MBA very result-oriented. And we also try to build an ecosystem together with venture capitalists, with banks, with local entrepreneurs,
so
that when
more than that course.
Exactly, when the students, they finish, they really can start up their own company.
Stavros, do you feel that the education world is moving fast enough to harness the power of technology? That, you know, the digital world is changing so many things in our lives, but to what extent is education adapting to that change and using it itself?
Can I just go back to something that Claudia said about the magic solution, about there not being a magic solution? I don't want to use the word bullet given what Dr. Yacoobi has been saying, but there is no one magic solution, but there are solutions. And WISE's mission has been to bring those solutions to the forefront those innovations. And I think what's lacking to a certain extent is the ability to operationalize and to scale those solutions to reach a large number of people. We need more Sakena Yacoubis. We need more Ann Cottons and the other laureates if we're to deliver that solution set. Just on technology, Michelle, maybe education isn't harnessing the technology is fast enough, but I think as WISE we're agnostic on the issue of technology. Technology is a tool. And many of the innovations that we see are not necessarily high-tech innovations. And I think there's a tendency now that technology is fashionable, it's impressive, dare I say sexy, that we all get hung up about, you know, the latest gadget and we're going to save the world using iPads. We're not. We're going to save the world with teachers. We're going to save the world with early childhood education. We're going to save the world by teaching entrepreneurs, raising the next generation of job creators. That's how we're going to save the world. If technology helps, great. But let's not get hung up about it.
It's a method, or a method, rather than the method.
Yeah, and let's not get hung up about it.
All right, Claudia Costine, teachers. I mean, I think that is often a part of the puzzle that doesn't get talked about enough. There's a chronic global shortage of teachers.
Okay, if there is one, I'm not allowed to say silver bullet, but if there is one solution, the solution is with the teachers. It's funny because we often complain that teachers are ill-prepared or the teachers are demotivated. And in some sense, it is true in many parts of the developing world. But the solution is with the teachers, because there is no computer that substitutes a great teacher. There is nothing that would make up for a great teacher. So how to deal with them? So you mentioned, I was so moved by what you said, Dr. Sakena, because you mentioned not only your life experience, but the real solution to the thing. We need, since early childhood till tertiary education, great teachers. And this is feasible. It's not easy. You have to have good pre-service education. Pre-service education in most parts of the developing world is a real disaster. Part of the learning crisis is the fact that we cannot properly prepare good teachers. And we don't do good in-service education as well.
Okay. And that is very much a responsibility in the country. Those teachers need to be homegrown, ideally by the state.
Exactly.
All right, okay. I just want to turn to two people in the audience and get a microphone up to Mike Ferrick, who's sitting there, and also to Learning Equality, who are sitting down here, just to talk about how we might be able to scale up perhaps in a different way from what people imagine. Mike, go ahead. Explain what you do. That's probably the best way.
Yeah, so I believe there is something close to a silver bullet. I run Allison. I founded it 10 years ago. It has 6 million people online. It's the world's largest workplace, free online learning platform. We don't just teach people in developed countries, but we get into very marginalized situations, and people in war zones, tens of thousands of people in Iraq, in Kurdistan, Sudan. It is possible to teach people around the world for free and to do it profitably. It is possible today to provide full turnkey primary, secondary and tertiary schools online in every language at a cost that is unimaginable to most people today. It is possible. We're signing up 200,000 people a month. But now that's an impressive figure to some. But the truth is, as Gracie Michel said this morning, we need to look at the size of the problem, not just kind of be feeling good that we're doing something about it. Let's look at the size of the problem. We need to be signing up tens of millions of people every year into new systems of learning.
Okay,
and free online learning can do that.
Just explain, Mike, yours is what people would understand as a MOOC, but they are courses on specific skills.
Okay, so we've 750 free courses on anything from how to touch type, to speak English, to learn project management, to accounting, health, that type of stuff. Teaching people at the bottom of the pyramid. We're not teaching people to be the brain surgeons of tomorrow. We're teaching them to be basic managers in undeveloped countries primarily. But it is possible, and the economic models are there. It doesn't cost enormous amount of money, and we're proving it. We're educating millions a year, and we're doing it profitably.
Okay, learning equality. Claudia Costin says there's no substitute for a great teacher, but?
Well, the good news is that there's a lot of high-quality educational content that is now available for free online. But of course, the challenge is that most of the people in the developing world don't have access to the internet. At Learning Equality, we are making quality educational resources that are available online, offline, through an open source software solution. And our solution is part of what is enabling microeducation, very similar to what happened in microfinance. Somebody who is familiar with the topic today can leverage these resources and make them available in low-cost mobile devices and really facilitate a mobile school. And they can become a social entrepreneur and overcome the shortages that we are facing in terms of not enough teachers, not enough schools.
Okay, so you can in a nutshell, you can download it, you can take it on the road, you can make it more widely available. I mean, Stavros, if we're talking about reaching millions of children and older learners with quality, these are all the kinds of solutions that need to be invested in.
Well, again, I think absolutely there is a role for technology to play, particularly when it is delivered in a cost-effective way. And it's not just about selling devices. But again, I think we need more than that. It's part of the solution, but not the only solution.
All right. Letizia Moratti?
Well, I think that, well, certainly online and modern techniques can help, but I agree that the quality teachers are the key answer. But I also would like to touch the point you have raised. I mean, we have to educate millions of people, and I know, Your Highness, your engagement, your commitment, it's so strong, and we should all try to follow what you're doing. But an idea came up this morning, and I want to elaborate on this idea. There is this global fund on HIV. Why don't we think about a global fund on education, putting together resources from public and private sector? It's the goal 17, which is probably the most neglected goal. And again, it was goal number 8. Now it's goal number 17. It's about global partnership. I think we really need to build global partnership. Global partnership does not mean just global on a global level, but also what Dr. Yacoobi was telling us, to build a relation with the community, the local community. So, in my view, global partnership means to engage private and public sector, local and national authorities, multilateral agencies, ONGs, foundations. So let's put all of them together. We are too fractioned. We are not going to succeed if we still look, each on what we do.
Claudia Costi,
yes. Global partnership.
Do we need a new fund?
There is a global partnership for education. And it's very active, could be enhanced, could receive more resources. And it puts together private sector, government, CSOs. It already exists. But let me comment quickly on the learning and equity comment. This is what is needed, because if we have content available for free in the net, good content and connectivity, then we have resources for teachers. If you put technology in the hands of great teachers, and now I'm talking specifically of education of children and adolescents that still don't have the skills, the non-cognitive skills, the social and emotional skills to disciplinedly, to work with independently, that some adults could have to access in tertiary education. But let me just take this example to emphasize that in Rio de Janeiro, we developed a platform of digital classes using free content in the internet and build these classes with the teachers, for the teachers, and we use this to make the school much more interesting and to give tools for the teachers, and it was a game changer. And I want to thank Sheikh Moza for the support that was given, and it was effective because we discovered with the help of Educated Child, children that in the slums, 3,000 children that were not at schools. When they came to the schools and found this platform of digital classes, interesting stuff, they don't leave school anymore. Retention was asserted. I promised Sheikh Moza 3 years ago that I would retain those children, not bring them back to school to leave next following year.
Aisha, what do you think of what you're hearing? You've grown up in a country which is lucky to have so many resources at its disposal.
So I would go back to what Stavros had mentioned. Surely technology is an attractive tool and it's an attractive trend in education. But to strike the balance between technology and also the face-to-face learning, to provide equal learning for those in marginalized communities, but also even within here, technology plays a barrier where we don't really build on the skills, so that one-on-one interaction is important.
I want to talk for a moment and to turn our attention towards the really hard to reach, the really marginalized communities of all kinds. Claudia mentioned those in the slums already, but I want to turn to Daniel Villanueva. Daniel is the director of a Jesuit. If we can get a microphone to him over there, he's the director of a Jesuit educational organization which works in areas where governments are either unable or perhaps even unwilling to get to. Daniel?
Thank you, Michelle. We are called Fe y Alegría, the organization that translates to faith and joy. And we are a Jesuit organization, but we work with more than 140 religious congregations throughout Latin America and Caribbean and also Africa. So we, in total harmony with what has been said here during these days, we really believe that the best way we can contribute to the development of a country is raising the quality of the public education. So that's what we do. We started 60 years ago in a small slum in Caracas, in Venezuela, and today we are an international movement reaching out 21 countries, and we are serving 1.5 million students. Our way of proceeding is working with the community. We help them to negotiate with the state, so the running cost and the salary of the teachers is run by the government, but we help with everything else to make possible the blooming of schools where the government otherwise will never build the facilities. So, and we follow up with pedagogical approaches, and we help them to grow in a community-based model. And our experience has been that it's impossible to think in education for the poor without the government, but we should think in a public system that gives room for private and civil society initiatives as strategic alliances. That's what proved our experience of 60 years, and I think we hope we can keep going on for many years. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Letizia Moratti, it's worth remembering, of course, that there are marginalized communities in very rich countries as well, and you've worked with drug addicts in Italy. How much is education a part of what you were trying to do?
Well, San Patrignano Foundation, which is a rehabilitation center in Italy that on a free basis welcome young boys and girls from all over the world, thinks that, and I'm proud to be part of the family of San Patrignano, because this is how I feel. I feel that it's part of my family. I think that education is key. When these young boys and girls come to San Patrignano, they've lost everything. They've lost their dignity, they've lost self-esteem, responsibility. They're not afraid of dying, they are afraid of living. And if you think that worldwide there are more than 300 million of young people that takes drugs, these are people that are lost to society. So I think we need to do something for them, as we have to do for each child and each boy and girl in the world. So I think that we cannot see these people as marginalized people. I just want to give you one example. We had a girl coming from US. She was coming from one of the most famous and wealthy family. And the doctor told to her father, forget about your daughter, she's lost. You put her in a psychiatric hospital and you forget about her. He didn't give up. He loved her, and I was touched about the fact that Dr. Yacoobi mentioned the word love and trust, which I believe are two words that too few mention in our speech and in our work. And when she came to San Patrignano, she came under the program. She finished the program, and she was a long program for her, 6 years. Then she became the responsible person for the international relation of San Patrignano. And now she's out, and she's formed her family, and she's creating in Australia a community inspired from San Patrignano. So this is an example of, you cannot, you have never to give up. I mean, one life you can save, it's the utmost importance, no matter, if it is marginalized from a developed or undeveloped country or developing country. But we need to think that we need to help each child, and this is what we try to do. And education is key in San Patrignano, so all kind of education, from the vocational training to higher education.
Yes.
And we succeed most of the case, and we are happy.
And if you lose it, it can be gone forever. I want to turn to Rebecca Winthrop from the Brookings Institution. Rebecca, yeah, there you are. And you've been doing a lot of work, I know, Rebecca, on education in general, but particularly on how you can scale up some of these solutions.
Hi, yes, thanks. We've had a very actually interesting conversation today on this question of scaling up. And for us at the Brookings Institution, at the Center for Universal Education, which does research and we do a lot of policy advising and convening, we both are motivated by the Sustainable Development Goals, as governments around the world are going to say, okay, how do I do this? As well as a lot of the topics that were talked about today. We talk a lot about the 100-year gap, which is that kids, in terms of their levels of education and attainment in developing countries, are about 100 years behind kids in developed countries. And it's not projected to change anytime soon unless we do something very different. And so hence the question of scale up. And we have an initiative called the Millions Learning Project, which launched a year and a half ago and will be having findings out this March. And we have a lot of insight and learning and are actually continuing to learn over the next couple months about what is that special sauce that largely takes innovations that happen on the margin and brings them to the center and makes it de facto about reaching learning for all. And I guess my question for the panelists are, if you could do one thing to scale up learning for all, what would it be? Just one.
Well, I'd like to come to Stavros last, if that's okay. So, Claudia, why don't you start? Because you have this incredible vantage point where you see so many different initiatives in different parts of the world.
So if I had to start with one thing to scale up, it would be pre-service education for teachers. Prepare good teachers for early childhood, for basic, for secondary, and for tertiary education in a different way, in a child or student-centered approach. No, the student should be the center of everything, and teachers should be taught how to prepare.
And so are you putting that at the heart of World Bank programs? Because you have the ability
and this is what we are doing. Let me, just one program, since tertiary education was emphasized, we created in Africa, we mentioned Africa here, the African Centers for Excellency. When you think about the needs of Africa, it's natural to think, okay, let's finance kids in schools. But if they don't have good teachers, and especially if the teachers don't have good teachers, you won't change the world. So in the Africans, we have 22 centers of excellency in West Africa, and now we are preparing 20 more in East Africa, including teachers pre-service education.
Okay.
And that's where you start to change things.
We don't have very much time left, so I'm going to come straight to you, Stavros. One thing that you would change, and then I want to ask you what is next for WISE.
I'm actually going to maintain what I said earlier, which is I don't believe in the single solution. So I think we should, education is a complex issue, it's a complex machinery, and I don't think we should single out any particular area. I think some of the WISE research that we worked this year to put together provides some of the solutions in different areas. We touched on early childhood education, which Claudia alluded to earlier in the panel. We talked about teacher training. Again, very important. I think everyone agrees. Entrepreneurship education is something that we focused on. Well-being and education, which brings in the health dimension. These are all key issues. And I think, again, the WISE community of innovators, of social entrepreneurs, has solutions for all of these areas. And I think with the kind of work that Rebecca is doing, but also that we've done in terms of how do you scale, how do you sustain innovation at the system level, all this is important. The solutions are there. We just need to mobilize as a global community. What's next for WISE? Certainly, the research will continue. We will expand that agenda in collaboration with organizations and partners from around the world, but also locally here in Qatar. Perhaps we'll look at an issue like how do we ensure this continuity from primary to secondary, and then so look at education really as a lifelong endeavor, not as a series of discrete and finite steps. We want to go deeper with the research, particularly here in Qatar, to work with local partners to see how we can translate some of those findings into actionable policy recommendations and also best practices. And then I've heard the word community used a lot, and the need to build coalitions and to mobilize. Well, I think at WISE, we have that community, we have that coalition, so we just need to figure out how best to use it and how to mobilize it towards achieving some of the goals that we all believe in and we all spoke passionately about.
Yes.
And then finally, it's business as usual. So you announced, thank you, Michelle, the awards. Mm-hmm. They're open. Please apply. Those of you, please encourage projects to apply to the awards. The second cohort of the accelerator, the WISE Accelerator, has been welcomed here at the summit. We're going to be working with those innovators, and we'll be very soon opening up the call for others to apply to join the accelerator. Learner's Voice will be running. The new cohort is here. And so it's business as usual. And of course, our social media and our outreach will continue.
Yes. I mean, what I love about WISE is that sense of seeing these great examples from all over the world brought together. And it's just so interesting to see the different work that people are doing, but also the common threads amongst so many of it. I would urge you, if you haven't already, to get copies of those WISE reports, because they are an incredible resource. And of course, you are already a community, but the WISE website is another resource where there is material that can be used all year round, far beyond the gatherings here in Doha. So I would like to thank you all for your participation, for your contributions. I'd like to thank the panel, I'd like to thank the production team, and Your Highness, I'd like to thank you for your leadership. So I wish you all a safe journey home, and I wish you also all the best for your work. Thank you all very much. Thank you.